Every time a new commander gets released, I want to know generally two things. If they're a rally or garrison, are they actually going to change the meta for that role? And are they good in the open field? Now, this video is going to address whether or not the new Scipio is good in the open field. And he actually did, in some ways, better than I thought, and in other ways, surprisingly worse than I was sort of expecting, and you'll see exactly what I mean in a minute. Now, a big thank you to 2293 for spending time to do this testing with me, specifically Maury. Thank you, I appreciate you. And also a thank you to the makers of Rise of Kingdoms for sponsoring today's video. So let's get a look very briefly at Scipio's kit to just understand, wait, what about him is good enough for the open field? And of course, the first thing we need to look at is the active skill with 2700 damage factor and 20% damage taken by the target for 3 seconds. Look, debuffs are king in the open field. That is a scary debuff, all damage taken. And it is a scary amount of damage. And it is also smite damage. So it is dodging all of the things that would give you skill damage mitigation. It's not skill damage, it's smite damage. The next thing we need to look at is the second skill, which doesn't actually do a lot. It gives you 20% march speed when you're outside of territory. Bit of a wash, but better than nothing. The rest is rally related. Up next, you deal 5% more normal attack damage, and whenever you're hit with a basic attack, you have a 30% chance to dispel all health and defense debuffs currently affecting you for the next 3 seconds. You also get immunity to health and defense debuffs, and you take 25% less normal attack damage. That's pretty legit for 3 seconds. So you are reducing your normal attack damage taken, pretty good against a smite commander, really. And it has got a cooldown of 5 seconds. So you're going to get a pretty good uptime on this. So although he doesn't bring defense and health to you, he does remove defense and health debuffs. So if you were getting targeted, that would be pretty sick. Next skill makes it so if you're attacking a city or stronghold, well, that doesn't really help you here, does it? So we've only got a little bit helping him in the open field. And when we look at the expertise, whenever the current target of this commander's troop uses an active skill, you gain 40% more rage for the next 2 seconds. I mean, that's pretty legit because there's going to be the active skill of the primary commander and then the active skill of the secondary commander. So for 4 seconds in a row, you should get 40% faster rage. That's pretty outstanding, actually. So he's got a way to generate rage, which the smite tree is sorely lacking. So we went in and did some duels, and I'll put a picture of the talents up on the screen for what it is worth. We took all of the equipment off. We took all of the armaments off. We wanted to just try lots of different combos and see what we could learn in a duel context. And we also did some 5v5 stuff. Well, technically, I think it was 3v3, just to sort of see, like, hey, what happens? And that was really insightful. So we'll start with the duels here. And I brought Liu Che Alexander the Great, and he brought Scipio with William Wallace. Both, by the way, are maxed out. So this is pretty wild because I think this ends up being the best combo. And it does really well in a duel context here. You can see that I lose, but just very barely. So here's one big takeaway, which is that if you have a limited number of infantry marches and you're already in a good spot with them, Liu Che Alexander the Great did about as good as Scipio William, which means you could go invest in these commanders or you could just use what you have. Now, granted, this is, I think, double relic on the Alexander the Great, but you get the idea. We ran that test again. This time I actually got defeated in a pretty meaningful way, losing by about 8,000 sev wounds. Actually kind of a big deal. And then boom, we did it again. I lost by about 3,000 sev wounds. So from a dueling standpoint, this march is doing amazing. And it makes sense that against the Smite commander, given that we are reducing the normal attack damage we take on the new Scipio here, that we might get this result, okay? From here, we brought in the cavalry. Cavs are here. And we brought in Huo and Alexander Nevsky and absolutely decimated. I mean, decimated these infantry. 23,000 to 41,500. Absolutely cooked this thing. So what is this weak to? It's fast skill damage, right? And we ran Zhuge Liang and Hermann Prime. cooked it yet again, but only by about 2,000 sev wounds. Then we went back and forth, making sure to leave the Huo out for 30 seconds. Technically, we did like that's before swinging in with it. So he gets the full benefit from all of his skills. 24,000 to 41,000, just absolutely disgustingly bad trade there. There's another 7,000 positive for Zhuge Liang and Hermann Prime. So from here, we test one more Huo with Nevsky, but this time we switch it up and use Liu Che as the secondary, and this combo still gets cooked. So whether it's Wallace or Liu Che, doesn't really matter. About 24,000 to 38,000 GGs. Absolutely cooking with this Huo. Then I use Liu Che with Alexander the Great against Skippy Liu Che, and this combo loses quite meaningfully by about 13,000 sev wounds. That's pretty bad for the Skippy A. We do it again, and it loses by about 9,000 sev wounds, and this time we bring out the archers, Zhuge Liang Hermann, 24,000 to 30,000, so the archers are beating this combo as well. So this is not looking good for new Skippy in the open field. From here, we test some other combos, just sort of reaching to see if we can find something different here. About 29,000 to 43,000 against a Skippy Gorgo, and Gorgo's really not much better in this instance. We run a Skippy Alex, okay, and the Liu Che Alex cooks that as well by 14,000 sev wounds. Pretty brutal. So this is very bad for Skippy A. We try Skippy with Skippy, the Skippy Bros, and that also gets absolutely destroyed, 17,000. And then we do Skippy with Martel, just to like see what would happen. And that also gets cooked. If we look at the buffs here, it is a single relic on the Charles Martel. So you could get more from this, but I mean, what? If it gets 10,000 better? I mean, like, bro, I don't know. It's not amazing. That's what I'm trying to say. All right. Up next, we've got Liu Che, Alexander the Great against Skippy and Pyrrhus. Now, Pyrrhus, surprisingly, has the double buff. Really surprised that Mori's got a Max Pyrrhus double relic. GG, everybody. But you can do things with that. You should probably level it up. Lol. But anyways, they should also put this Might Talent Tree on Pyrrhus, just saying. Not a great result either way. You'd want the Pyrrhus to be the primary for sure. That would make a big difference, but about 26,000 here to 37,000 GGs. Don't mind all the Barb Fort spam. We have an event now in our KVK. I'm going to get to that in a second. Then we tried Skippy A with Sargon because chat wanted to see it, and that got absolutely raffle stomped. Almost a 2-to-1 trade here, 27 to 51,500. GGs, everybody. Now, people said, well, you know, dual testing, blah, blah, blah. We need some group testing. So we did some 3v3s. And the thing that we learned by doing 3v3s and targeting the Skippy March last is that it just got destroyed by AoE. It actually reminds me of the original Guan Alex from back in the day. So my takeaway from all of this testing is that Skippy A is probably going to be a great rally, and we'll do rally testing on stream probably tomorrow to showcase that. But I do not think he is great in the field. Could you make him work? Yes. And if you were swarming a garrison, I think there's some pretty cool stuff to be had from his kit, right? Like making it so that you have a chance to silence the target and cut their defense and attack by 50%. That's 25% of each is really, really good, right? Like this is a great skill set for a garrison swarm, but not great for the open field. And I do worry, by the way, that even in a garrison swarm, he is just going to get destroyed by any AoE skill damage, but even just the counterattack damage is going to cook him. So probably best to get these debuffs from the rallying rather than the swarming, in my opinion. So all in all, very cool commander. Field viable, probably not. Rally viable, I'd say so. And if you want to see the full testing, I'll have a card in the end screen right over here. You can see the whole live stream. You can see the things people were saying, the reactions they were having. You can see more of each of these tests and view it for your own eyes.